How's it going, everybody? It is Ethan and Koder, and welcome back to another episode here of Let's Build Twitter. This episode, we go ahead and continue working on the register change step part of the modal. That way we can actually go backwards to previous steps and change things that we need. So let's go ahead and hop into VS Code. We'll get into it. Eventually, we are going to be using Redux, but for the time being, we're going to not be using it and we'll set it up later. So what we need to go ahead and do now is make it so we can actually change the steps whenever we click on this button to go backwards if we're allowed to. We left off, we were working on the registration step. So if we start at 1, we can go back, so on and so forth. So we need to go ahead and change the registration step counter. And inside of our registration props, we need to pass in a change step method. So we'll go ahead, change step. And this is going to return a void. And of course, this is going to be on the button. So we're going to say on click is going to equal to this new method called change step. You guys can probably imagine that this change step is going to change the step. We also need to make sure we pass it in there. Awesome. So now, as you see, our register modal is complaining because it doesn't even understand what to do. So let's go ahead and come back in here and let's actually pass it that function. So for the time being, we're going to say change step is equal to, and then we'll go ahead and just do this real quick. And let's just say that we print out console.log change step was clicked, just to see that this does in fact work. Come back in here. If we open up our console, it's not going to look too great right now, but we have apparently some loops, so that's cool. Is this actual issue? Nope, that's old. So if we click this, we see change step was clicked. Obviously, if we're on a certain step, we want to fix this so that it doesn't show up like this, but I'll show you guys how we can fix that in a little bit. I don't know if this episode, but eventually. So what we want to go ahead and do is actually make it so this change step button really actually does something. So we're going to have a state inside of the register modal that keeps track of which registration step we're on. So we're going to go ahead and import useState from React. And inside of our application, we're going to go ahead and say const step and set step, like so, is equal to useState. And this is going to be a number. And we're going to start out on step 1. That makes sense to me. Now we can go ahead and pass step in here instead. And now whenever we actually want to click on the button, so we're going to go ahead and just make a quick function here that's going to set the state for us. So go ahead and say const step button clicked equal to, it's not going to take anything. We're just going to say step greater than 1 question mark. And then we will say if it's greater than 1, set step equal to step minus 1. Otherwise, set step to 1. So now we can actually call that in here. So step button click. And now if we start out, for example, at number 3 and save, we click the back button, we're at 2, we're at 1, this would just return it to 1. So now we can actually click back. And if we also set to like 4, for example, we shouldn't be able to change it because there's no thing there. Obviously the highlight's still there, we need to fix that. But now we can switch through our different steps. Now to actually fix the bug with that, all we really need to do is change whether or not we can actually click the button. Also, what class to apply to that registration counter. So if we go back into a registration counter utils, right now all we do is just do this, and then inside of our registration counter, we just have this display icon. So what we want to do is make a new class specifically for when we can click it, and a class specifically for when we can't. We're gonna have to do a little bit different logic to change this based on what number it is. So we could probably do something like, come in here, go ahead and say export const icon class equal to, it's going to take in the step number. And then this will return a string, like so. And then we're going to do something similar to where if step is equal to, and we'll say 4, or step is equal to 6, we will go ahead and return a string, and the string will be reg step button disabled, or reg step counter button dash disabled, like so. Otherwise, we'll return reg step button, so what's already here. And this will allow us to kind of figure out which one to actually show. So now back in here, instead of this, we are going to call that method. So we need to go ahead and grab that reg, and I forgot what I called it already, icon class. That's not a very good name. I might rename this, but we'll call icon class. Pass in the step, and this will return a string. So now what we can do is actually write the CSS for that new icon. And it's going to be essentially the same, except it's not going to have any hover, and it's not going to essentially show anything. So if we go back into our register step CSS and come below register step counter and say .reg step counter button dash disabled, we're still going to give it a height of 40 pixels. We're still going to give it a width of 40 pixels, and we're still going to give it a margin right of 40 pixels. So let's take a look at one of these now and make sure that it works. So now inside of here, step 4, oh, it still has the on click. So we need to not have it on click. So let's see. So this is going to get really confusing, but maybe now inside of, let's see, inside of register modal, the best thing we could probably do is say if either of these do nothing, set step to step, otherwise, set step to step. I think I did this backwards. So if either of these step is greater than 1, so let's say step is equal to 1, set it to step, otherwise set to step minus 1. And now even if we click, nothing should happen theoretically. So now we're on 3, 1 does nothing. Let's change it back to 4. So now we change step to 4 and refresh. So we'll have to refresh the page for it to work. Now nothing happens. So it's a little bit more confusing, a little bit more gross, but everything should be good to go. From that aspect, we can't go backwards where we don't want to go backwards. Unfortunately, that's going to be it for today. If you guys enjoyed, please stick around for the next episode by hitting that subscribe button. You'll know exactly when it comes out, especially at that bell icon. If you did enjoy the content today, please sure to leave a thumbs up. If you did enjoy it, leave a thumbs down. Either way, it helps out with the algorithm all the same. And finally, if you have any suggestions or feedback for me, make sure you leave a comment down below. With that being said, I appreciate you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.